But there's one piece of advice. If I know anything over the past near 2 decades doing sports talk radio, I would say it's this. Whenever a parent or a family member gets involved in an athlete's business, it is never good. Never. And I don't mean just they're active or they're like, look, like Mama Kelsey, okay, great. She's not, but whenever someone wants to get involved in their significant other or family member's career, it never goes well. I don't know how people still get to that. It never goes well. No matter who your dad is, no matter who your significant other is, it never goes. Your dad is Deion Sanders. It never goes well. Today, Deion Sanders decided to weigh in on the various draft reports that happened leading up to the NFL draft, in which we watch Shedeur Sanders drop to the 5th round, where he's in Browns camp right now trying to win a job, potentially maybe winning the starting job. We had heard reports all throughout the draft process that Shedeur Sanders maybe tanked interviews because there were teams he didn't want to go to. Deion Sanders had said there's a few teams I don't want him to go to. We heard a lot of reports from different teams saying that, yeah, he wasn't really into the meeting. He got really contentious when at times where we challenged him on things. It looked like he wasn't really interested or unplugged at times. We heard all these reports about Shedeur Sanders leading up to the draft.
Wearing headphones in one meeting,
which
is really the most curious of all, but yeah.
So Deion today goes on the Say What Needs to Be Said podcast, which is hosted by former NFL cornerback Asante Samuel. And again, when parents or significant others get involved, it is never a good thing. Here he was deciding he was going to go on and talk about the process and what happened and defend his son with all the things how he was accused of behaving in the pre-draft process.
I know it was a lot of rumors about the next level, and I can't see that. Yeah. I can't see the next level. And I think a couple people who may have taken shots at my kids, they were afraid that I would go. That's where the shots came from. All you got to do is just sit back and listen. People don't want to do that. They want to create these narratives and create these stories and then attach them to a kid that ain't never done nothing wrong.
Yeah. How does that make you feel when you see your colleagues or your peers going in on you, man? Like, how does that make you feel?
No idea, man. You have no idea. People always been in front of the camera, so they know how to navigate. They know how to handle themselves. Yeah. And you're not going to catch them in no foolery and no mess. You're not. When you sit up there and say something like, he went in a meeting unprepared. Like, dude, Shedeur Sanders, who's had 6 different coordinators, who has still functioned and leveled up every time we brought somebody new in, and you're going to tell me
every situation.
You're going to tell me he had on headphones.
So you a dog, your kid's a dog, and dogs going to always rise to the top. You know what I mean? That's what I believe. You know what I mean?
It did hurt. The Bible says God uses the foolish things to confound the wise. So it was some foolish stuff that went on, but you know what? That gave them something that they needed.
All right, now, first of all, Deion Sanders, when his face gets really close to the camera, which is what happened in the middle of that day. I'm getting really close. It's like a WWE promo. Who are you, man? Who are you? Good, bro? So here's the thing. First of all, before we get to the really big thing and why Deion should have just kept his mouth shut, right? Number one is that, okay, all these stories have been out there. Nothing had really been questioned. There was never any, wait a minute, this never happened, we would have heard stories like that. If Shedeur Sanders really didn't tick some teams off or teams weren't really, they were making up that they were upset with it, we would have found out by now. It would have been a whole thing going, Deion's the first guy that's not going to be quiet. Something's happening to my kid, but he picks now to do it, right? I'm going to do it now after it's all said and done. Again, if that really was going on, we would have heard it. Teams aren't going to make stuff up. They're not going to make stuff up about players. They don't want Shedeur Sanders. Obviously, there's a team that drafted him, right? So they wanted him. Teams would want Shedeur Sanders to succeed. You don't sit here and go, we want this guy. We don't want to take him. If he was really good enough, they would have drafted him. But when you're a borderline prospect and all of a sudden, preemptively, you are coming out and saying, there's teams I don't want my kid to go to, it's, okay, we can move on to other prospects, right? You have done your part to push us away from Shedeur Sanders, which is why I say in the beginning, It's never good. When you want to get involved with your child's or your significant other's career, it's never good, because Deion Sanders did all he could to help push teams away from Shedeur Sanders. Now, if Shedeur Sanders was the unbelievable prospect that we thought he was going to be, or that all teams thought he was, they would have found a way around this. The right team would have drafted him in the first round. They would have maneuvered up to go, hey, this is where we want to go. But instead, everybody passed on him for 5 rounds. 5 rounds. So, going into it, all this knuckleheaded stuff, Deion thought, oh, I got the big prize here in the NFL draft. I can do and say whatever I want to. No, you overplayed your hand. Right? If he was that good, he would have been drafted, or they would have found a way around it. But now you helped ruin it, because you put out this optic that if we draft him, we're drafting his dad too. Are we a team he doesn't want? Why are we getting in on this when there's many other prospects, middling prospects that could be good, could be bad, that we could go get that don't have this attached to them? And that's why teams backed away from Shedeur Sanders. So congratulations, Deion Sanders. You did your part to make sure that your son fell through the draft.
Well, we talked about it a lot during the process of it doesn't take the whole swing. You might have 8 people in the room, right, that are going through whatever the whiteboard work is, whatever terminology, all of those things, and just meeting him coming into the building. Probably a lot more than that, but just say we confine it to a room of 8 to 10 people. It only takes the decision maker to decide that something rubs them the wrong way of how you approached it. And it doesn't mean that they're necessarily right, but if they're the decision maker, there's the decision maker. And guess what? Everybody talks, right? What's the running joke going on with the combine? Everybody meet at St. Elmo, and you exchange all your stories over some grog and some shrimp cocktail. That's what you do. What I would be asking, the response to Deion, because he made sure to point it out here, is he went through 6 offensive coordinators. Why did he go through 6 offensive coordinators?
Weren't
it
you
was
the
a
head
question
coach?
we asked where they were bouncing guys around.
Weren't you the head coach that hired and fired all these offensive coordinators? Okay, that's
But was
great.
that a question that Shaduer had to answer during the process? Because I'd sure as hell be interested in that response. Why'd you guys keep cycling through guys if everything was working and the offense was clicking? Which it was oftentimes, right? Gaudy numbers. It was easy to blame the offensive line and lack of depth based on the move and recruiting and everything else. But it's a question I think needs to be asked in the grander scale of this. But certainly I understand why he's talking now. We're starting to ramp up towards football, right? We've been talking about the expansion of the playoffs. We're getting into the next iteration because spring games or whatever was left of them are long in the rearview mirror, and we're going to start getting to camp. So, yeah, you want his thoughts on some things. And until this is put to bed, which, you know what? It'll never be put to bed because it's always going to be speculation until teams come out and say, yeah, I was the guy that put the downgrade on him for this, that, or the other, which is never going to happen.
No, but here's the thing, and this is why Deion Sanders needed to just shut up and stay out of this, right? What did I say about Shedeur Sanders? Be about football. Right? Be about football, win the job. You'll be if you're about football and you're really good, you will get into this fall, and by October you'll be the starting quarterback of the Browns. But be about football. All Deion's done is bring this up, and now what's going to happen? Stories are going to get out where teams are going to want to defend themselves, and they're going to bring up all the unnamed team. Shedeur Sanders did this, and now Shedeur Sanders has to deal with all the knuckleheaded stuff that I'm falling around in the draft in the first place. So all he's done is dredge this story up again, which is doing him no favors.
Well, but go back to last week, right? We had to talk about you're never going to outrun the internet, right? If someone decides you bought a $500,000 car, you're going to have to prove out of your bank accounts and anything you might have in a Swiss bank account. I didn't move any money to buy a car. And even if I did, we had the money. And like if it's anything like what Cooper Flagg allegedly made, near the $30 million at Duke, I mean, Shedeur has the $500K to buy a car if he wants to buy a damn car. Leave him alone. But he's saying all the right things. This dredges it back up and becomes this festering piece. You're never going to outchase guys looking for clout on the interwebs. That's, that is going to keep happening. The biggest and most adult in all of this was Brian Dable, because he was asked all that stuff about what happened allegedly with the Giants a while ago. He goes, it's done. Draft is done. We enjoyed talking to Shedeur. Moving on.
I'm telling you, man, all Deion did was help make it more difficult for Shedeur Sanders to get rid of this and just focus on football. Congrats, Deion. You did it.